right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Can everybody in the back hear me okay? I see thumbs up. Sweet. All right. So congratulations, everyone, on completing the 2021 USARA Adventure Race National Championship. For my first time on this side of the rope, or whatever you want to call it, I got to say I had a fantastic time watching all of you race for the last 30 some odd hours. I didn't get much sleep either. I don't know how much sleep you guys got, but and it was really fantastic just seeing everybody again. It's been a long 2 years since we all got together. I know we all would have loved for this event to have been like 100% back to normal. We still had to make some considerations based on COVID and all of that, but it was still fantastic seeing all of you. Since the last time we were all together, there's been a couple people from the U.S. adventure racing community that are no longer with us. Those of you that were at C2C earlier this year or were aware of that, a new racer, Troy Manns, lost his life in an accident with a car. I believe it was his first or one of his very first adventure races. And he was already showing the passion and spirit that we love to see in new racers. And unfortunately, his life and his career in adventure racing was cut short. And also back in March of last year, we lost somebody who's a very long-standing member of our community, Bill Gibbons. And I'm actually going to have Abby Perkis come over and say a couple words about Bill.
Yeah, so Bill has been a longtime member of the adventure racing community. He started the Goals Adventure Racing Association, which stands for Gibbons Outdoor Adventure Leadership School, and he and his wife, Anne, have been at the forefront of USARA since early on, almost since its founding, and I believe Goals was founded in 2003, and Bill he chaired the safety committee, he was a member of the board, and he brought an incredibly robust community together in the Mid-Atlantic and in the Philadelphia region. So Brent and I got our start in racing through Goals and are forever indebted to Ann and Bill for their work in the sport. And it was a big loss for the community, so we wanted to make sure to recognize him today.
Yeah. All right, so getting into the presentations here, first I want to say this was a really fun course to watch, even though the first half of the race we almost didn't know what was going on. We knew about as much as you guys. We had fun watching everybody try and sort out those 5 legs. We had a lot of fun trying to speculate who was going to come off that stage first. We spent a little time speculating on how fast we think teams would finish. Some of us were closer than others. Yeah, no, don't point at me. But no, it was great. And we have Paula Waite to thank for that and her amazing crew of volunteers. Paula, you want to come here real quick? I didn't leave this area much, and I got to know a few of the volunteers well, but I want to make sure that they get their due and get their thanks, so I'm going to force Paula to say a thing or two.
So can you guys stand up? Yeah, let's hear it for them. So, of that crew right there, not very many have ever adventure raced, but they've been doing this since the beginning. So they keep coming back. I don't know why. I think because they love you guys as much as I do. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Paula. I know we had 2 years to put this together. And for this being the first time for me being in this role, I couldn't have asked for a better race director to work with. And your team was amazing. Everybody was fantastic. And so thank you for making this a pretty darn easy experience, all things considered. So fantastic job. I also want to thank some folks that have been working on this side of USARA for a long time. We got Stephanie Ross over here and her husband Ben help with course stuff. Stephanie was here all night. I don't think you slept at all, right? Even I slept an hour, and she didn't sleep at all. We did our best to get things posted for all your friends and family to follow along, and she's been, by my side most of the weekend helping out. We had Greg Smith over there. Raise your hand, Greg. Stoic Greg doing whatever I asked, whenever I asked, and half the time doing stuff I needed to get done without me asking him. So that was pretty fantastic. And of course, we got Troy sitting there, who some of you probably remember, which was a huge help, constantly kind of reminding me what needed to be done and helped me learn the ropes a little bit. And in fact, Troy, you want to come up, and I think you had a couple things you wanted to say real quick.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to take you guys down a little memory lane in a second. Who knew, when we started the USARA in 1998 with a ragtag group of dirtbags and adventurers, that would be where we're at now. I'm really proud of where it's grown. And I want to first real quick recognize some of the early guys that were on our board that I had the pleasure of working with. I mean, these guys, a lot of them are the pioneers of adventure racing in the U.S., and they laid the foundation for what we have now. So Don Mann from Odyssey Racing, you guys will know some of these guys. Dan Barger from Calico and Primal Quest. Trayson Thayer with NOC. John Walker from Adventurous Concepts. Patrick Harper from Team Montrail. Stephanie Ross, Flying Squirrel. Brian Holshausen with Dino. Brent Friedland and Abby Perkis with Rootstock. Tim Buchholz with Rib Mountain Racing. Katie Farrington, Never Summer. Bill and Ann Gibbons from Goals, and Robin Benacasa with Team Merrill. Guys that all really had a lot of influence on the building of where everything is. And if you'll indulge me for just a couple of minutes, I'd like to take some memories from some former national championships. So our very first national championship was in Kernville, California. And we started in a valley. It was like yesterday. It was about 70 degrees. We had a paddle and a orienteering section, and then they had a bike hike that gained 5,000 to 6,000 feet of elevation. And when they got on top, it was in the 20s and snowing. And the rest of the night, they were on that ridge line in 20-degree weather, pounding snow. There were some teams. This is one of my great memories. We started off right. There was a team from Florida who had just never raced anything like that and wasn't prepared. They didn't have the right equipment. They got very hypothermic in the middle of nowhere, way before trackers or anything. Well, I don't think we had cell phones then. And they were in trouble. And several teams stopped racing, gathered enough firewood for the whole night, built a big fire for them, and actually took off clothes and gave those guys clothes so they'd be okay through the night till the sun came up, and then started racing again. And I think that's always such a great memory. And right from the start, that's how we were. And actually, what a great treat. Team Bones that's here. Roy Malone, where are you at? Roy actually raced in our very first adventure race back then in 2000. He was in that race as a competitor. The next year, or a couple of years later, Sapphire Valley, North Carolina, Don Mann, we actually had custom ropes made. The rappel was so big that normal ropes weren't even close to being able to do it. So we had to get a rope company to make our special ropes for that race. That was a good memory. We went back to California in 2003, Lakeshore, and it dumped 10 inches of snow the night before the race. So all the trails, bike trails, were this deep in snow and everything else, which made it a really challenging race. And then we went from the snow to Tampa, Florida. And I got to say, if you guys think this nav was hard, the one thing we remember about Tampa was there were maybe one or two contour interval lines on the whole map. It was just flat, right? And so it made it very tough, especially for the mountain teams. In 2006, Santa Barbara, California, we started the race with a paddle in the ocean, and seals were swimming along with the teams as the race started, which was really cool. Well, probably a lot of you guys may have been in Potosi, Missouri, and there's only one four-letter word that describes the start of that race, which is COLD. It was freezing. I don't know if you guys remember that. Then Blue Ridge, Georgia, we got to ride a train for the start of the race that stopped in the middle of the woods, let us out, and that's where we started the race. It was really unique and fun. Pilot Point, Texas, we had major rainstorms through most of the race. and it rained so much that at the end of the race we had to cut out several CPs because they were actually underwater. They're like 3 feet underwater, and the teams couldn't find them. The first team comes out, and they're like, "Hey, man, the water's this deep where these points are supposed to be." We had a sprint and collegiate nationals in Reno that CBS televised, and during the race there were helicopters with cameras and guys with motorcycles with cameras racing alongside the racers, which was really cool. 2012 Kerhonks in New York. I'm sure a lot of you guys stopped at that country cafe that normally closed at 11 p.m. and they stayed open till like 4 a.m. and their fireplace and soup and hot coffee kept a lot of guys in the race, and that was a fun memory. Deep Creek, Maryland. Brian Holshausen, who's here is racing, who's been our race director a few times for nationals. Our original race director from Maryland moved a few months before nationals and really kind of put us in a bind, and so I called Brian and I was like, "Hey, can you?" I mean, Maryland's not really that close to Indiana. I was like, "Can you just drive over? Surely you can run over there and set up a course for us for nationals, right?" So Brian took on the challenge, but he kept calling me. He'd go over for a weekend and he'd come back and he'd go, "We've got to cut out this section of road that we were going to ride. These old forest roads. They just paved this road." And he'd call me the next week. "They just paved this section." They're like paving the whole state. Like every forest road we have, he'd go over and it'd be paved. So I give him a lot of props. He worked really hard. Oh, that's your stuff, Garrison. So he worked really hard to do that. And then Pineville, Kentucky, when Steph was our race director, there was a great maintenance shed. You guys were really cold. It was raining, where everyone got to warm up and eat a little something before the paddle. But the really awesome memory was a few teams came across this hillbilly in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, who had somehow driven his car into this hole that looked like a perfect grave that was dug for a car. And so his car's upside down, like 10 feet deep in this hole. And when I know it was with Dolly that first came across him, when they started talking to him, his response was, they're like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he goes, I think I'll just burn it. Like, okay. And then Earl says, "Hey, do you need to borrow a phone to call somebody?" And the guy's response was, "Who am I going to call?" So anyway, it was definitely an interesting and surreal real moment. And I want to close with something that happened when I was actually the race director. It was the second year or the third year one in Leesville, Louisiana. So I lived about 4 hours from where we were having nationals, and the Chamber of Commerce asked me if I'd come over for a meeting. And I got to be honest, I wasn't really excited about going to that meeting because I didn't think anything was going to come out of it. And I was like, "Man, I'm going to drive 8 hours to do this." But I was like, I should do it. And so I go over, and we have the meeting, and they just get super excited about it, all these guys in town. And so this is our initial chuck wagon. Like, we've had the chuck wagon at races before, and then we had the macaroni and cheese and soup last night. The guy that owned Walmart, or not owned it, the manager comes up after the meeting and he says, "Hey, this is awesome." Like, he's really excited about the race. And he says, "I've got this concession trailer and I'm going to pack it full of donuts and candy bars and chips and sodas and Gatorades, and it's going to be free. I'm just going to follow the race to all the TAs and any spectators or racers that want to come and grab whatever they want during the race. I'll have it there." So I'm like, "Great." And the racers certainly enjoyed that. But the really interesting one was this lady walks up to me kind of after it's all over and I'm getting ready to leave, and she just hands me a piece of paper with a phone number on it, and she says, "If you run into any problems, call this number." And then she walks away, and I'm like, okay, that was kind of odd, right? So I keep the number, and about 1 week, I'm not kidding you, it was less than 10 days before the race, we get a phone call from the lake manager, and this was the year that 9/11 happened, and she's like, "You guys cannot paddle on my lake." Originally, we were going to paddle across the lake, portage over the dam, and then go down the river. And she's like, "I'm afraid that this terrorist is going to try to blow up the dam," which is kind of wacky thinking. But anyway, she's like, "You can't paddle." And I'm like, we've got teams flying in from all over the country that have qualified in less than a week for this race. Like, we can't just cut out all the paddling for the race. And she's like, "That's your problem. You're not paddling on the lake." So we grab the maps and we see, is there any way we can throw something together? And it's just not possible. So I go and I get the mystery phone number and make the call. Louisiana, we've got a problem. And the lady, I explained the situation to her. She listens patiently and says, hang tight, I'll call you back. Less than an hour later, I get a phone call from her and she says, you guys are good to go. The paddle's on. And I'm like, are you Al Capone's daughter? Like, who are you? How did this happen, right? So she tells me her husband works for the governor of Louisiana. And he said he called the governor called the lake manager told the governor they're not paddling on my lake. And the governor reminded the lake manager that her position was an appointed position and told her, you can either let them paddle on the lake or you can let me know and I'll appoint somebody who will let them paddle on the lake. Just let me know your decision. And so today we have a whole nother set of memories, thanks to Paula and her group, that we get to put in the memory bank from another great nationals that happened. There was good times, there was bad times, there was tough times for sure, but we have all these great memories that we will cherish and share for the rest of our lives. My best memories come from meeting other adventure racers, getting to race beside you guys, getting to watch y'all overcome challenges, and definitely looking forward to our dirty little meeting we have every year at Nationals. I'm blessed to have raced in several countries and to had so many adventures that have come from this sport, to have made a ton of great friends, and also to have had the pleasure of serving you guys for the last 20-something years. I'm super excited to pass the torch to a group of really capable people who I believe are going to take U.S. adventure racing to the next level. And I think we've already seen the start of it here with the great tracking and the trail mail and all the stuff that at this Nationals that we've already seen that happen. This group has a ton of combined experience, both as racers and race directors. They've been serving the sport already for a long time. A lot of them have served on our boards. And the one thing is they all have a great passion for this sport. I had something specially made that I wanted to give to each of them. And in typical adventure racing fashion, the people mailed it to our last Nationals in North Carolina that we have. So it's in North Carolina. So they're going to have to, but also in typical adventure racing fashion, we overcome, right? So they're going to have to accept a handshake for right now. And when I get those things, I will pass it on to them before. So if the following people would come up, first Brent Friedland and Abby Perkis, and Cliff and Kate White, Mark Latanzi, who's not here, and Michael Garrison. Like I said, I don't have the thing to pass on, but and Michael Garrison. Yeah. Almost up. Yeah. There's one more person that I have to recognize. She's been a loyal supporter of adventure racing forever, member of our board, a close confidant, and just a great friend, and that's Stephanie Ross. So thank you guys. Keep chasing the adventures and hope to see you out on the trail soon.
When you started those stories, I was starting to have second thoughts because they were all kind of going in one direction. And I was thinking, are you telling me like what's going to be happening here in the future? But the stories got better, which I definitely appreciated. I want to thank Troy as well for deciding that our group is a good group to take over USARA and try to take things to the next step. It's been 22 long years and a long path, and you've brought it a long way, and we will do our absolute best to keep it going and take it where it's going next. So thank you, Troy. Have just a couple more thank yous. The guy sitting behind the computer, Mark Harris, which is over there somewhere. Thank you, Mark. I've never seen somebody get so many questions from so many angles, and he's totally cool with it. And he had all the answers pretty much all the time. Obviously, Mark was behind the tracking for the event, which was part of the media coverage that we did, which we really tried to step up this year. One of the things we really want to do is help people understand what adventure racing is. We love each other and the dot watchers, and we can all decipher shockingly little information and figure out what's going on, but there's a lot of people out there that can't. And so we really wanted to kind of step up our game there. So along with Mark, we had a media team that really busted their asses the last 2 days or more, 3 days. And so I want to kind of call them out here all real quick. For those of you not familiar, there's a guy over there named Randy. Somewhat legendary Randy. Randy, thank you. And then we got Lee standing over there in front of the porta potties, a nice backdrop that we've been fighting with for pictures all weekend. And his wife, Ann, who's in the admin room back there. She's probably waving out here somewhere. There she is. Then we got Dave Gedney over here. And we got Eric back there. And I saw him a second ago. Sam and Raquel. There we are, back there. I'm pretty sure you all saw them at some point, if not multiple points. Many of you talked to them. I don't even know how many videos we've already got up. If you look at Facebook tonight before you pass out, or tomorrow, what you see is a fraction of what we have. I think at last count, Ann's been uploading photos for like the last 24 hours straight. We're over 1,000 photos and counting. We're going to get you links to all those. They're all for you to use. I encourage you to download them for yourselves, share them with friends and family, and help spread the word. And if you have any feedback about the coverage or anything, please let us know. You know, one of the things that we want to do is help make this sport more understandable and more accessible and more approachable for everybody. And this is just one small piece of that process. So thank you, media team. You guys were absolutely phenomenal. And I want to say one more thank you to Zanfell again, because they really helped make that media coverage, make that possible. And I had one racer cross the finish line. No joke. I wish I had a camera. I wish I had something. And I don't even think she dropped her bike. And she said, "Do you have Zanfell? Get me Zanfell now." So we went, and I apologize for whoever got the bag missing the Zanfell, but she really, really wanted it. And so we stole Zanfell from one of the bags. And I'm not sure what happened at the finish of the race, but I turned around to hand her Zanfell, and she said, "Hold on one second, I got to throw up." And she did. And so I set the Zanfell down, and I was like, okay, come back and get that later. So they're a great sponsor. They've supported the sport for a long time, and it's a product I think we've all been familiar with at some time or another. So thank you, Zanfell, for supporting us. I'm going to get into the awards now. For those of you that are curious and haven't seen it, this was something that Paula's volunteers put together, and how we kept track of what you were all doing on the Cloverleaf, which was a really clever course design, but also made it really hard to use just the tracking alone. So we had this board up, and I kept offering people to go take a look at it, but most of you were way too busy and in too much of a hurry to take a look at it. So we'll leave it up here. In case you're wondering how it works, we recorded your start and finish time for each leg, and then the order in which you did each leg. So I'd suggest, take a picture of this if you want to look at it later and figure out who did what and how long it took. I'll also have, I'm not sure where I put them, all the splits for the fastest paddle, the fastest bike, and the fastest orienteering legs. We'll put them up on these tables. We got one copy of each right now. I'll get a second copy printed out so you can all check them out. Just take your time and come up. They're not going anywhere, and we'll get them posted online too, so you can check those out. Okay, so moving on to the awards. So first, we're going to do the overall rankings for this year's season. For those of you that aren't aware, we implemented some different approach to the rankings. We can explain the math later if you want. I'm not going to get into that now. And you had a limit of 5 races. We capped it at 5 races to try and make it as fair as possible. And coming into this race, we had a pretty tight contest at the top of the field. And after the results settled, we had 10 points separating the top 3 teams, which was pretty impressive, and they all completed 5 races this year. So we'll start with 3rd place, Rib Mountain, with 309 points. Go over and get a picture. Sorry for the feedback. In second place, we had Rootstock Racing with 317 points. And this year's winners of the number one ranked team in the country with 319 points, edging out second place by 2, is Strong Machine Adventure Racing.
We can't win any races, so we just got to do it.
All right, so as you're all aware, we also did some leg awards for the fastest paddle leg, the fastest orienteering leg, and the fastest biking leg. We're going to have Wadali come up first with both the fastest paddle leg and the fastest mountain bike leg. They edged the second place team in the paddle leg by 2 minutes, and they edged the second place team in the fastest bike leg by 3 minutes. So well done, guys. And for those of you that aren't aware and haven't heard, at least some point in the race, these guys were doing really, really well. And there was another team doing pretty well, which was Quest, and they were about an hour behind. And I went and did something, I'm not sure, and then all of a sudden they were in a TA together. And the main reason for that is because Quest did the orienteering leg almost an hour faster than anybody else. So Quest, you want to come on up here? You guys dominated that one. Well done. And I'm not going to lie, we had some conversations about who's going to do what in this race and how well they might do, and kind of conjecturing, and we're like, man, these guys come from out west, they got like mountains and big valleys and stuff. Are they going to do okay in Wisconsin forest? The answer is yes. They're going to do pretty darn good in Wisconsin forest. So fantastic work, guys. And so we got a few awards here for the annual Spirit Award. First, we had somebody come in, and it was pretty quick, recommendation. Matt S. came in and said, man, we just want to nominate Flow State because we were having some troubles out there, and they definitely got us set straight, and we're super appreciative, so we want to nominate them for the Spirit Award. And I said before the race, one of the things we like to support is support. And you're out there helping other teams. Yeah, you're competing against each other, but help each other out. So Flow State, if you're here anywhere still, send some. Come on up, guys. And in an interesting twist of fate, I don't know how many hours later, Blue Jay Bend Racing came in somewhat dejected because Jason Magnus had snapped his handlebar in half on his mountain bike. I heard something about rough trails with rocks and stuff. I don't know. So he came in, I think he said, I guess we're done, or something along those lines. And Matt S. was standing right there, and they had the misfortune of having had a teammate out of the race sick, and basically just kind of turned around and said, well, you can use his bike. And so Jason swapped over and took their loaner bike and kept on racing, and they did pretty darn well. So Matt S., if you guys are still here anywhere, come on up and grab your award. And for the last one, I actually heard a few stories throughout the race and after the race about some folks that had this as not just their first nationals, but their first adventure race ever. And I was thinking, dang, that's pretty impressive. This is a pretty big undertaking. And I had the fortune to be around while one guy was being interviewed, and I heard him get asked the questions like, so you've been in a canoe before? Nope, never been in a canoe before. So this is your first time in a canoe? He's like, yep. Well, what do you think? This is awesome. I love it. So what about the other stuff? You've been on a mountain bike before? Nope, never been on a mountain bike before. Well, what do you think about that? This is fantastic, man. I love this sport. This is amazing. I'm having a blast. And this is like 15 hours into the race. And this dude's excited more than any 3 people combined I've seen in the last 12 hours. He's absolutely loving it. And so we're talking to him some more, and Dave Gedney here actually interviewed him. We'll have it up online later. And it absolutely exemplified. I'm like, man, if everybody could be this, if I could be half this positive, I'd probably have more teammates. Because this guy was just stoked beyond belief. And then I get news that he got injured. And his team had to drop out of the race. I'm like, God, this sucks. And I couldn't get a hold of them. I weren't sure they were going to be here. And then I talked to one of his teammates afterwards. I'm like, because they had just walked in a little bit before the whole thing started. And I asked him, like, hey, man, is your teammate okay? He's like, oh, yeah, he's good. You know, we're nothing like life-threatening. And I was like, man, we loved his spirit. You know, I just wanted to make sure he was going to be here and stuff like that. He's like, oh, man, he's still stoked. Like, wait a minute, like, so you got injured, had to drop out of the race, and he's still stoked beyond belief? He's like, oh, he's always like that. So Wheelo from Team Onyx, come on up. If you can. Or we can come to you if you want. Yeah, why don't we'll come to him, yeah. I kind of forgot part of the story was that he was injured. That was kind of not cool of me, my fault. But if you get a chance to meet him and talk to him, this, seriously, the level of excitement he had was inspiring. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I got more excited to go adventure race again. So, fantastic job, man. All right, so moving on to the Open Female Division Awards. We're going to go 3 deep on these. And so we've got in 3rd place with 33 checkpoints in 28 hours and 31 minutes is Checkpoints. And in 2nd place, with 34 checkpoints in 28 hours and 18 minutes, we have Fragile Flowers. And finally, in 1st place, getting their plaques as well as one of those big checks over there. With 38 checkpoints in 28 hours and 11 minutes, we have the Wilderness Wenches. And for those of you that aren't aware, Stephanie Ross, who's up here, has done a lot of work with women in AR. And I forget what time of night it was, but we were sitting here watching, and one of the all-female teams came in. And they were going to take a good decision. They were going to take Highway M out to the Big O course and get some points, kind of play it conservative. Great choice. And we're watching the tracking, which is super useful because we can kind of see where you guys are. And occasionally it gets to be a little bit entertaining too, because this team took off and all of a sudden they're going a little bit east. And we're like, oh, they made a wrong turn. They'll figure it out. They're 5K down the wrong way. We're like, oh, crap. Like, what's that? I know. I'm just telling our story about your teams. Keep going. So, yeah, so I'm sitting here with Stephanie, you know, and who's heading up Women in AR, and she's like, oh, come on, girls, let's get back on track. 10K the wrong way, and they're still going. We're like, oh, and they're going like 21K an hour. We're like, what are they going to turn around at some point? They got all the way to, what is it? Clam Lake, and stopped. And if you stop long enough on your trackers, a little bed icon pops up. So they stopped in Clam Lake for like an hour, and if this bed icon pops up, we're like, is there a hotel there? We're pretty sure there's not a hotel there. There's bars there. And then I'd forget if they called us or if they called us to let us know that Steve was bringing them back. I don't know who the hell Steve is. So they're down in Clam Lake, and they're talking to Steve, the nice guy that gave them the ride back. And they're like,
He owns the tanning salon.
oh, he owns a tanning salon. If you want to give Steve some business, absolutely, support him because he's a super cool dude. So they asked him how much further to cable. Got a funny look, and they weren't sure what the funny look was all about. He's like, it's a 20-minute car drive. They're like, what the hell? We've been riding for 18K. There's a 20-minute car drive to get the cable. And I'm not sure how long this exchange took place until they finally figured out they had ridden 18 kilometers east, and they wanted to ride about 18 kilometers west. And so Steve, once they figured it out, gave them a ride back here. And they got back here, and we talked to them for a half hour at this table, laughing our asses off about the story. They had an absolute blast. And so Third Coast AR just kind of waved to everybody. Every year we need a story. Everybody's done it. I've done that and worse. And at least you didn't have a flipped over car that somebody wanted to light on fire. This is a much tamer story. So, moving on to the all male division. In third place with 47 CPs in 29 hours and 33 minutes, we have Gear Junkie. And in second place, yeah, I see somebody making their way up here. There's at least one. Yes, two. In second place with 49 checkpoints in 29 hours and 19 minutes, we have Only Mostly Lost Boys. And in first place, we had a team that we all got really kind of disappointed because, you know, trackers don't update super fast. But their little tracker dot was really far south at like 155. And we're like, okay, it's a gravel road. These guys are going to have to haul ass to get back here and beat the cutoff. I had forgotten we started at 8:04. Other folks hadn't, but we're thinking, man, these guys could be hosed. They came smoking in here overtime by a few minutes, crossed the finish line. We're all clapping and saying, good job, guys. And they didn't say a word. They didn't look happy. One by one, they all fell down on the ground. We're trying to make sure they're still alive. Michigan Racing Addicts, with the penalty, still finished in first place with 51 checkpoints in 30 hours and 4 minutes. So guys, whatever you did to get back here, fantastic work. What's that? Oh yeah, these guys are back-to-back champions. And we'll give them a minute, because trust me, I saw what they looked like when they came in, and do not ever give up, because you never know, and you put in that kind of effort, and you can still pull one off. And I apologize for I keep making hurt people try to walk up here. I'm sorry about that. All right, Co-Ed Masters Division. In third place, with 40 checkpoints in 28 hours and 46 minutes, we have Goals ARA. In second place, with 42 checkpoints in 29 hours and 38 minutes, we have the Wildlings. And finally, in first place, with 47 checkpoints in 29 hours and 18 minutes, no complaints. All right, so moving on to the Premier Division, we're going to go 5 deep on this one, and remember the first place team will win, or third place team will win a $500 credit towards any USARA race next year. Second place team will win a $1,000 credit towards any USARA race next year, and the first place team will win a $1,500 credit towards obviously multiple USARA races next year, and a free entry into Huayrasinchi in Ecuador. And these guys stepped up. I didn't go beat down their door. Santiago from down there approached us and said he wanted to do this and kind of promote some more U.S. racers coming down to race. I know Chip Dodd did the race just this past year with Andrea. I think they did some media work for those guys as well. I know other racers here have done it. Talk to them, hear about the race. We've heard nothing but positive things. So that free entry will go to our first place team as well. Sorry. So in fifth place, we have Blue Jay Bend Racing with 55 checkpoints in 29 hours and 27 minutes. And I already know they're not here, so I'm moving on to the next one. I got a text from Jason. And in fourth place, we had Bend Racing with 56 checkpoints in 20 hours and 27 minutes. What I haven't had a chance to tell Jason yet, because he wanted to make sure that I knew that both teams got all the checkpoints. I don't know if anybody remembers, but 5 and 16 are really close together. One's a bike point, one's a trekking point. So all you get to hear first that they actually punched the bike checkpoint twice and missed the trekking checkpoint. So even though they came in together, they're going to be separated by a place. So they'll find that out here in a second once we're done here. In third place, with 56 checkpoints in 28 hours and 13 minutes, what I think you could probably call one of the local favorites, Rib Mountain Racing. Tim, this is a good example of what you can do when you bring all the maps with you on a race. Told you I was going to do that. In second place, and like I mentioned before, the top 3 teams, when they left here on stage 1, were about 40 minutes to an hour separated. And it was a lot of fun watching them chase each other. And at one point, the second place team caught the first place team. They either really were friendly or they just pretended to be friendly for a while at TA3 before they took off on the bikes and tried to rip each other's legs off. Saw each other again when they both missed the same checkpoint. Saw each other again on the last trek until finally the winning team came in here. But the second place team, runner-up, with 56 checkpoints, which is clearing the course in 25 hours and 22 minutes, Quest. Fantastic work, guys. And then I guess they got, I don't know, nostalgic or tired of beating up on each other because the winning team have all won national championships before, always competing against each other. And they decided, well, that's fun. Well, let's just go ahead and give it a shot together. With 56 checkpoints in 24 hours and 45 minutes, only 45 minutes ahead of the course estimate, which we thought may have actually been a little bit long, is Team Wadali. Great work, guys.
That goes to Justin. Or Mary, I don't know.
We have so many things.
Mary wants a check. Mary wants a check.
Thank you so much. Good. Thank you. And I think all of you know how difficult and challenging the course was, and like we've talked about with some folks that have won some awards and talked about in general, you got to be able to endure and keep pushing. And this was definitely a course that was challenging in more ways than one. So thank you to all of you, first of all, for showing up, and thank you all for racing. You guys all did a fantastic job, so give yourselves a round of applause. I bet somebody I'd do this in 23 minutes, and I don't think I'm going to win. So a couple things left real quick. I'm going to announce, first of all, the location of next year's national championship. After I'm not sure how many years, we'll be going back to California. And once California figures out what's going to stop burning up, we'll give you more specifics on exactly where in California. But we're working with all-out events out there in California. I've talked to the race director. Fire, obviously, is an ongoing issue in the state of California. We've got a lot of options. We're just kind of waiting to see where things end up after this fire season. We're actually going to have even a backup course in case fire affects things next year. And within, hopefully, the next few weeks, we're planning on the same weekend in 2022. We'll get that nailed down and let you guys know once the wildfire season is over. So hopefully, you guys will all make the trip out to California. In the next week, we're also going to be confirming the locations for the first few regional championship races. We're going to have 12 of those around the country next year, and we've got some coming up most likely in the month of October, maybe November. So keep an eye out for that. All of you on the mailing list for this race will be one of the first ones to find out, so we get out there and support those race directors. And finally, to wrap things up, 2 years ago, we were in North Carolina, and Troy came over and he was like, hey man, you just did Eco Challenge, right? And I was like, yeah. He said, you want to come up and say something? I was like, I haven't slept in 2 days, but sure. And so at some point during the ceremony, I got up and I said a few words. I don't really know exactly what I said. I know that I had zero idea that I'd be here again, and it's definitely no idea that I'd be here in this particular capacity. But here I am behind the microphone again, trying to be as enthusiastic and emotive as possible. Where's Dave? One of the media guys. I'm a pretty quiet dude, and I'm pretty like low key, and so I kept getting coached anytime they recorded videos to like pretend like I can show some emotion. So I'm doing my best there. Like I said, I had no idea I'd be up here, and we didn't have a nationals last year for obvious reasons, and then this opportunity presented itself, and here I am. And I do remember one thing that I said last time, 2 years ago. I was encouraging all of you to share with your friends and family the fact that a big adventure racing event was going to be on TV. And all I could really say at the time was they did a really good job. It's going to be really cool. Let's try and spread the word about the sport that we love and get other people to at least understand what it is and hopefully get out and try it. So now I got the microphone again and I got an opportunity to say something else again. So there's nothing to watch on TV. But instead of convincing your friends and family to watch it on TV, I just ask all of you to take a friend or a family member and bring them out to a race. Maybe 2, maybe 3. You all do that a lot already, but let's keep doing it. Because we've got a fantastic community, and I know we can make the community bigger and stronger, and all you gotta do is get people out here. Hell, 3 people came out for their first race, at least 3 people came out for their first race ever yesterday. So do your part. This is what the sport's all about, is all of you. Without all of you and all the volunteers, we don't have this. And I personally love this a bunch. So get out there and spread the word. We're gonna do our part as USARA. We've got a lot of big plans. We've got a lot of work to do and a long way to get there. But we wanna do what we can for the sport, which is you guys. And so I'm just asking all of you to do what you can as well. So with that, thank you again for all being here. Stay safe, and hopefully I'll see all of you out there soon.